Hey everybody, welcome to Spoilerpiece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And big news, everybody. Evan and Megan are off again this week, so I am joined by a very special guest. Please clap at home because I can't hear you do it here. We're joined by Jason from Binge Movies.
It's great to be here. It's an honor and a pleasure. My pronouns are whatever you want them to be. I prefer to go by Big Dog.
Oh.
Big Dog runs hot.
Big Dog runs hot. Very well. We are talking about movies as we always do. But real quick, I just want to point out to everyone that we have a Patreon, and over on the Patreon, Jason and I get very in-depth into the 1994 romantic werewolf drama Wolf, starring Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer and James Spader and Richard Jenkins, who we forgot to mention, in a strange comedic role at the end of the movie. I wish I'd remembered that. Anyway, that's over on our Patreon if you care to listen. It was a fun conversation. Please do, become a patron if you're not. And if you are a patron, it's over there. And while I'm at it, I want to thank our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you so much for being our sponsor piece patron. Yay! Okay. We have two movies to talk about on the show tonight. I'm not going to categorize them because the first one wants to be categorized, but it cannot be. Dark Asset, which is a I hesitate to say thriller or action movie.
Sci-fi, techno, action, thriller.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of things it wants to be. And then we have the new Irish comedy drama, Flora and Son, about a mother and a son who both become musicians, by John Carney. It's kind of what he does. We'll get to that too. Let's talk about Dark Asset, which, I mean, back when I was in college and we were making student films, yeah. I had a friend who smoked a lot of pot.
Yeah.
And he made a movie called Dark High. And it was about a guy who has like the worst high of his life.
Yeah.
And it's an incredibly bad, typical student film from the 90s.
Yep.
And it's better than this.
Oh, man. So, okay. I love movies.
Are you sure?
I love them. I binge them. I like to share that joy with other people. I don't like to be a negative voice when it comes to movies, especially like smaller, low-budgeted, independent films, because that's often the place where film students are getting their start, right? Like every movie is somebody's first movie. And especially at a certain budget level, right? It's like, okay, everybody's getting their feet wet. Everybody's getting their reps in, so to speak. And you kind of know that when you get a screener for a Shudder film, or when you see certain independent movies, or when you're scrolling through Amazon Prime and you're like, what the hell is this? That's what. So I really hate taking those down because, like, doing this stuff is really hard, and So
making movies is a lot of work. It really
is. It's a lot of work.
People don't think it is, but it is.
It's very hard. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of people who are very, very good at what they do to make a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's way. It's very, 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 very hard to make a good bad movie. But even talented people do it. So all that aside. And I take no joy in saying this. This has got to make my worst of the year list. This is one of the worst things I've seen. It's like an hour and 25 minutes or maybe 45 minutes. Can't remember. That last 25 minutes of this movie, it felt like it was 3 hours long. This is everything I don't like about kind of modern digital cinema. Like, nothing takes me out of a movie faster than charmless plug-in special effects from After Effects or Adobe Premiere that are just dropped in. I mean, if you're going to do an action movie, and this is the thing that always like grinds my gears. If you're going to do a high concept sci-fi techno action movie, and you cannot use or know somebody who can secure sugar glass.
That's the big one, isn't it?
And you're going to shoot glass and have bullet holes in the glass, and then have somebody go flying through the glass for the big escape. And neither the bullet holes are real. They're very, very poorly rendered After Effects plugins, and the glass itself isn't real at any point. And then you want to do a big slow-mo, glass shatters, and all of the shards of glass are fake and really low res, low end, stock CGI stuff. Rewrite the scene. There's nothing that's stopping you from just saying, okay, well, you know what? Here's what we envisioned in the script. We didn't get the money for it. We don't have the stunt coordinator. We don't have the technical ability to pull that off. So we got to get creative and figure out something interesting and innovative and different that we can do with what we have. And that's the difference between low budget filmmakers who make movies that are still oftentimes very shoddy, but show promise and are ultimately still entertaining despite their flaws.
Yep.
And you look at the work of like James Cameron, Sam Raimi, Joe Dante, pretty much all of the great people who went on to make all these great high concept 80s movies. In the first part of the decade or the decade before, or the decade before that even, they were working with Roger Corman, or they were working on these smaller films. You know, they were working on Piranha. They were working on freaking Little Shop of Horrors, speaking of Jack Nicholson. You figure it out with what you can do, right? Like you don't try to do, and I think because everybody has a MacBook now, and there's so much of this stuff is just drag and drop, you know, plug and play effects, everybody feels like they can accomplish more than they can.
Yeah.
And if your movie doesn't look better than what Freddie Wong was doing on his YouTube channel in 2011, don't do it. Figure out a different way. Like if YouTubers are doing better special effects than you are in a film that Saban is going to distribute.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why they bought this movie. Like, because
Saban is kind of prestige in its indie low budge stuff that it does.
It's put good stuff out that is in this vein and is lower budget and does have, you know, it's not seamless special effects, but they're creative, they're interesting. You know, a movie that's really low budget, obviously probably a bigger budget than this movie, but is doing a lot of the things I'm talking about, which this movie apes some stuff from, is Upgrade, Lee Whannell's Upgrade.
Yes, I was actually thinking of Upgrade because if I can break in for a moment, I was comparing that.
It's your show, sorry.
Yeah, I was comparing in my head Upgrade to Dark Asset because I was just thinking, you know, Upgrade has a lot of problems. It has a lot of problems. But what it doesn't have is bad pacing. You know, that movie just fucking moves. Everything is like, some things don't make sense. Some things do make sense. Sometimes you can't see exactly what's going on, but it doesn't really matter because somebody's getting punched in the face 3 seconds later. But it's such a breakneck clip. It just is more interested in the momentum. It's like a snowball going down a hill becoming an avalanche, you know?
You know what it doesn't do? Upgrade, it doesn't overreach. So when it does show you something futuristic, like you see one futuristic car, you see a little bit of the skyline, but then we get away from it because it's expensive and time consuming to render all those shots. And this is a movie where it's like,
let's do it all with no money and no talent.
Let's do it with all no money, no time, no talent, and good B movies figure out how to get away from having a guy sitting at a computer with a Shutterstock HUD plug-in effect that's just running on a loop and be like, I'm hacking the computer. Like, if it's so bad. Like as a film reviewer, as to filmmakers, and as somebody who has been an aspiring filmmaker and has made bad movies in his life, you got to know, like, okay, let's take RoboCop, right? Because there's a great RoboCop documentary series that's out now. Christopher Griffiths put it out, and it's available. It's great. It's out in its entirety. It's like 4 or 5 hour and a half plus documentaries. It's such a big documentary, it basically became a series. Yeah. And everybody and anybody that ever worked on that movie is involved and is interviewed, and they go in depth with the stuff. But one of the things that they continuously talked about was in the original script, everything was going to be so much more futuristic, including RoboCop's car, right? He was going to have this super futuristic car, you know, to go like this turbo cruiser or whatever they're going to call it. And they didn't. The budget fell. They went over budget, and they couldn't make the car. They couldn't. They started making it, but they were like, we got to scrap something, so we got to get rid of the car. And so they're like, well, what are we going to do for his car? And then that's when they figured out the Ford Taurus. Let's just get it because we're brand new cars. We'll paint him matte black, and he's just in a standard cop car.
Yep.
That works, and everybody on that film was like, that works so much better.
It's perfect.
Because even though there's touches of the future in RoboCop, the most futuristic thing in the movie is RoboCop himself.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else kind of looks like the 80s. It doesn't look like the far future. It's kind of grounded. And by everything other than RoboCop and Ed 209 looking kind of like our world, you accept it. And when we get to something like Dark Asset, it's just computer panels everywhere and HUD displays everywhere and the bad Terminator vision and just
all CG, but bad CG
and bad green screen.
Yeah, and and bad set design. I mean, the bar
that bar is horrendous.
It's just like, look, if you're gonna rent a warehouse and build a bar, and you're gonna go to the trouble to actually type the words "filmed on location in Los Angeles" in your closing credits, because I watched. Then you've got to have a friend, a cousin, a friend of a cousin. Like, somebody has to own a space or know someone who owns a space that
somebody
is a real fucking bar. You know?
We give a guy $500 and shoot at 2:00 in the morning or 3:00 in the morning or whatever.
You know,
or shoot in the middle of the afternoon. You got it. And the thing is, like, I talk all the time on my show about, like, the art of practical filmmaking is, like, dying, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And where I notice it the most is actually in B movies, because you look at it like B movies from the 80s, and a lot of them are not good, but a lot of them have production value. They have production design. And one of the things that they realize is, like, if the set looks kind of shitty, haze it. Haze the shit out of it. Get a fog machine and haze it. And splash it in some neon, right?
Yes. All of the Conan ripoffs from the 80s are the haziest fucking movies.
Yes. And the thing is, when you go back and you watch it, you don't really notice how shitty the set is. You realize, well, it's kind of hazy in there, but it kind of it gives an aesthetic. It's like, ooh, it's kind of smoky. And and it's like, you like, all that stuff has been lost. And you get movies like this where it's just sort of like flat lighting with, like, splashes of LED gel, you know, reds and blues in the corner. And it's a flat set, and it's just two characters sitting in this completely. Why did that set need to be that big?
Yeah, well, because of the fucking tepid action scene that came at the end of it.
But so most of this movie, right? Okay, if I told you that this movie is about a super soldier who the CIA or the agency works with a mad scientist played by, unfortunately, Robert Patrick, T-1000. They're obviously aping, and, you know, they use a lot of Terminator stuff. Mad scientist puts a chip in a guy, makes him a super soldier, kind of a thing.
And then for some reason, he's going and killing all the people who gave money to the project, because that's what Robert Patrick wants. Let's not even... should we mention that the plot doesn't make a lick of sense?
No.
Just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lick of sense.
It doesn't follow its own logic from scene to scene. And the guy, our main hero, escapes, and you think, okay, and it's this long, protracted, very poorly done action sequence. And, you know, people talk about like comedy is hard, right?
Yeah.
You know what else is hard is, like, being cool.
Yes.
And this movie is trying so hard to be cool. And when we go to it, we can't just have two characters talking. We have to reuse a real shitty version of the Star Wars special effects where everybody's in hologram and they're talking to each other in hologram. Why? It's just because whatever kid did this, I assume it's a kid, just thought that effect was cool. And it's like, you're just watching somebody, like, flex a special effects muscle that isn't there, you know? And so I'm gonna have to watch this very poorly staged scene where everybody's a hologram for no other reason than that kid knows how to make Robert Patrick look like a hologram. Like, what? I don't get it. So, but you think, okay, this guy's going to go on the run and he's going to have to kung fu his way out of situations. And that in its own right can be an interesting, fun, like Albert Pugh and people like him made a whole career. There's a whole subgenre of 80s and 90s straight to video movies that are just a guy's half robot and he kickboxes his way out of his problems. That's fine. There's no more kickboxing, no more kung fu, no more martial arts for a very protracted period of time. There's a woman that just shows up in the movie. We have no idea who she is, where she comes from, what her context is. She's sitting in this one of the worst bar sets I've ever seen in what's supposed to be a swanky hotel. It's so big.
It looks like it's bigger
cavernous
than the hotel lobby. I mean,
it's cavernous.
It's huge.
I just don't understand
and
it.
Then it has a bathroom that is behind a curtain. I don't. It's so fucking bad.
Then there's just tiny tables, and this woman is just sitting at a table by herself. And then the guy from the beginning of the movie, this is after a time jump because it's like 8 months earlier. Then the guy from the beginning of the movie sits down, offers her a Lamborghini if she listens to his story. And then the rest of the movie is like an anthology where he is telling stories of other people who have had this chip inserted in their brain to be super soldiers and what happened to them. And at no point does this woman, who doesn't know who this guy is, and we don't know who she is, say to him, I don't know who you are. Why are you telling me all of this shit?
Yeah, get the fuck out of here, you psycho.
They have this like flirtatious, supposed to be witty banter between the two of them. And you're just like, why? And then I
just want to say, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. Second of all, sorry this is the movie that I saddled you with. I mean, when I read I didn't know anything about this. I just read, the whatever, the press note, not even the press notes, like the log line. And I was like, oh, sounds kind of interesting. Oh, Robert Patrick. Well, it might be fun to see him do some killing. And then I put this thing in and I was like, oh no. Like in the first 3 minutes,
100%.
I was just like, oh no. This is like old sci-fi when sci-fi was a new channel. You know? It's
it is.
It's so bad. And then I looked at the director's filmography and he's one of these latter-day Seagal directors. And I think that tells you everything you need to know.
So I looked him up as well because I was like, maybe this is a first-time director. Basically, like this, he's like a student film kind of, and it just got picked up for some reason. And the answer is no. He's made like over 8 films, and
in
Seagal,
every genre,
in every conceivable genre. And this is one of those you're scrolling through Amazon Prime and you're like, when did 50 Cent and David Arquette make a movie together? And you're like, this guy directs those sort of movies. Like he's just at that level. And there is another movie, he didn't direct this, it's David Arquette. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like David Arquette is like testing people in a laboratory and it's all basically shot in 2 rooms. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. And it's better than this movie. There's 4 people. There's like 4 people in that movie, and they reuse the same room over and over and over again, but they redress it because it's like this. It's almost like Cube, where this person is like trying to escape this experiment, and they get from one room to another and all this sort of stuff. And David Arquette's the mad scientist that's watching them, and you can tell it's the same room. But what they would do is they'd move a wall. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you go from a room of one size to a different size, and then they'd move different walls in that were painted different colors or had slightly different things. And so it's like you could tell, like, oh, it's the same room, but it was creative of how they made use of the limited set that they have. Yeah. This is the complete opposite of that. This is like you're watching, and every story this guy tells this woman who is a total stranger to him is exceptionally boring.
Yeah. And he's not a good storyteller. Maybe
and he's so smug and smarmy, and because he's supposed to be so cool, and he says every line like he just said the smartest thing in the world. Yeah, and it's all inane dialogue and exposition, telling stories of we're like in a flashback within a flashback within a flashback.
I know this feels like it. This is supposed to be like an 8-part limited series, and each story that he's telling is actually an episode of the show.
For YouTube, if a group of people made this as a proof of concept web series, on YouTube 10 years ago, you'd be like, oh, okay, it'd be passable, right? But the fact that this is a professional, I use that loosely, production that's got picked up for at least VOD distribution.
Yeah.
And certainly I think it's probably going to get international distribution, is shameful.
Yeah.
Like this is not a releasable film.
No.
This should not be out. No one should ever watch this. This is not so bad it's good.
Discovery should have bought this, put it away, and then put out the Batgirl movie instead. I mean, that's
100%. And the thing I don't like, count how many seconds there are between dead spaces in the dialogue.
Oh my God. It's just like, if this movie were edited in the fashion it would needed to be to at least not feel dead, because this movie is lifeless. It's lifeless.
Yep.
It would be probably 8 minutes shorter. I mean, it's like
minimum.
It is staggering how much dead space there is in this movie. Like,
I truly believe if you ordered this in a logical fashion, because I think the whole we're playing around with structure and trying to be Tarantino and telling all these stories out of order and kind of being like a tech Pulp Fiction bullshit this thing's trying to do without any style or slickness at all. I think that is just done purely a smokescreen for how little story the movie actually has. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is this is a 45-minute web short.
Yeah.
That has been stretched out to beyond feature length, and to have an absolutely meaningless twist about a character we do not know. And that twist is
she really comes out of nowhere.
Absolutely random character who sits there, it gets a story told to her for 45 minutes, multiple stories,
and then
about
all of a
people
sudden,
we don't know. It's like a person we don't know is telling a story to someone we know even less about people we don't have any idea who they are for 45 minutes. And then the twist is, well, she's really been the super soldier the whole time. It's like, what the fuck? What?
Yeah. Have you ever had the experience when you were younger and you were around your grandparents and they would tell you stories about their friends or their neighbors or somebody, and you're like, yeah, and then Joe said to Jenny, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, who the fuck are Joe and Jenny? I have no idea what you're talking about. This is like watching a feature-length version of your grandparents telling you a story about people you've never heard of and people you don't care about.
Oh, and when Senator so-and-so talked to Dr. King, they decided that they're going to put the chip in Joe Blow's brains.
Yeah, and you're like, who's Joe Blow?
Who's Joe Blow? What? Yeah, what are you talking about? And then Joe Blow decided he was going to use the chip to rob a bank. And then when he went to the bank, but he fell in love with the teller. And it's like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, this
horrendous. I don't know the history of this. I don't believe Saban produced this. This feels like they've picked it up for distribution. Maybe kicked in a little bit of production money.
Has to be.
Why are they putting this out?
I don't know.
I'm not exaggerating. This is one of the worst movies I've seen this year. This is horrendous. I mean, it barely qualifies as a film. It is so dead, so lifeless, so pointless. It doesn't feel like it even has a finished script. This is true hack stuff.
When the true super soldier, the blonde Swede doing an American accent, kills Robert Patrick and his assistant at the end, that feels like the end of like episode 6. And now in episode 7 and 8, you see what she's gonna do with know, because seriously, the interesting thing, if there is an interesting thing, is that there is a super soldier who has killed all of her, everybody who made her
handlers,
her handlers. Yeah. The senator who got the appropriations, got the bill through like that. She's the one. Instead, you're sitting with this fucking guy, this smarm machine, who's just like, take my Lamborghini. I don't have a small penis. Listen to my story. You know, like.
And then we get a flashback where there's another. It turns out the mastermind behind this liberation plot is a CIA operative who's working with him and gives him the Lamborghini off of a guy that he killed. So he's given her a stolen Lamborghini from a guy they've murdered.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be rolling around. He does
tell her in his
eventually he's like, he's like, I didn't say the Lamborghini was mine. I said it was yours. And it's like, oh my God. That's a great point, right? If you submitted this to a workshop, right, as you wrote this as a short story, the thing that the feedback you would get would be, the most interesting part is the end. Mm-hmm. So cut out all the rest of its backstory. You could have it in your head or denote it somewhere. But the most interesting part, like the story actually starts in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in the case of this movie, last 60 seconds. So your story doesn't start to the last 60 seconds. So cut the rest of this and start it here and then see where that takes you, would be your feedback. And instead, they made a very, very boring. Because, okay, I can accept the smarmy guy if he's going to be okay, we got him because he's really good at martial arts. Mm-hmm. Not a good actor, but he can do this stuff in camera, and that's what we need because it's an action movie. We're going to go shoot it in Bulgaria, and he's going to go beat a bunch of people up and, and all this sort of stuff. Okay, that's fine. But he doesn't. And then you don't ask him to do any martial arts. And when he does, he's not very good at it. And you're like, well, I don't know why. Is this our main character? And then the twist is, no, the guy you spent the entire movie with isn't your main character. Why did I just spend all this time with him?
I know. It's truly bizarre. Let's real quick, though. I want to just capitalize on your takedown of the bad CGI, the glass shattering, et cetera, et cetera. Because when I saw that, the first thing I thought was, did I just want,
yep.
That's not real glass. Like, it wasn't that I didn't believe it. It was that I didn't believe it. I'm like, I can't believe, I believed that somebody went through glass, but what I couldn't believe was that the filmmakers thought I would buy that somebody went through glass.
That's an acceptable enough effect to leave in, yes.
And also,
it doesn't pass any test whatsoever.
I mean, David Fincher did bad bullet hole CGI in the opening of Zodiac.
Yes.
And that's a huge budget movie. And those bullet holes that go in the two victims, especially the female victim in the opening of Zodiac, it's bad. It's legitimately bad computer generated imaging, but it's better than this. Now, granted, Zodiac had a $120 million budget, but what I'm saying, the point is that was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that in 16 years, we could have figured something out. I mean,
I'm sorry, I can't, maybe this was a non-union production. I don't know. But if they're shooting in LA, it feels like they'd have to be. I don't know. But because the thing I can't figure out is, it is not at this point any cheaper to do an effect like that in CGI, unless you're getting your cousin to do it and he's doing it for free, or you're doing the effects yourself.
Yeah.
You're kind of, only have a handful of people working the production. Again, if this is a YouTube short and 5 people are making it, including the actors, you forgive those things because you don't have enough manpower. There's a list of people in the credits for this film.
Yeah.
What were these people doing? Because to me, it's like, it cannot be that hard in Los Angeles to find somebody who can make sugar glass for you and somebody who's willing to go the fuck through it. It can't be that hard.
Apparently it was. Apparently everybody's cousin was on vacation that week.
You can go to a salvage yard and get an old window, and this is America, so Lord knows you can get a gun, and you can go out into the salvage yard and shoot the plate.
Yes.
Shoot plate glass and stick it in your fucking wall.
Yeah.
Why would you do that when it's cheaper at this point just to shoot glass? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Then you just swap it out for some goddamn sugar glass. Movies that had no money, $300,000 in the 80s used to be able to do this a dime a dozen.
That's the budget of The Evil Dead. $300,000.
Dime a dozen, Dave.
Yeah.
Every straight-to-video piece of shit 80s action movie has somebody going through glass.
Yeah, and if you're Friday the 13th, 40 times a movie.
Yes. Jason loves throwing people through windows.
Loves to go through glass.
Those movies, I'm talking about beneath that budget, because those movies had $2 million, $3 million budgets.
You're talking about sleepaway camp.
I'm talking about even lower than that. I'm not even talking about horror movies. I'm talking about Kickboxer 4, which would be in the 90s.
Okay.
I'm talking about movies that were just straight to video action movies. I'm talking about Get Even. I'm talking about
best of the best.
Yeah, best of the best 2, Somebody's going through fucking glass.
I think before we both have a stroke, we should perhaps move on to a movie that is presumably better. I don't know.
I hated Dark Asset.
Yeah.
Did I make that clear enough? I hated it.
I was there was a little bit of a gray area still, but you definitely cleared it up. So yeah, I just this movie is so bad. I don't think that I can hate it because it's so bad. It makes me want to just get everybody together who was on a decision making level and be like, "What were you thinking?"
Postmortem movie. How did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did this script get this far along before you realized you had no plot?
Yeah. Nothing makes me angrier than CGI blood, but it's so bad in this.
Yes.
That I couldn't even be angry. I was just puzzled, So, Flora and Son.
Yep.
This is a very different movie. This is
very different.
This is a comedy, a drama masquerading as a comedy about single-ish mom. Flora, she's a single mother. She and her son, what would you say? They're at loggerheads. They're at odds. He thinks she's an asshole. She blames him for
asshole.
Well, she blames him for ruining her life.
He did.
He did. And she's trying to. She forgets his birthday, and in an effort to keep him out of trouble because he's a troublemaker, because he's a troubled youth, and his dad's no good. She finds a guitar and she's like, "Here, I had this guitar repurposed and it works now. And you like music." Learn to play guitar. And he's like, fuck off, yeah. So she
yeah, basically, yes.
Yeah. And so she starts taking guitar lessons instead because she's like, well, okay, sure. And she's looking for lessons on YouTube, and they're out there. By the way, I just want to mention RE Dark Acid. There are ASMR videos that came out a decade ago that look better than anything in Dark Acid.
Yes.
Anyway, had to get that in there. So back to Flora and Son. So she starts looking at YouTube for lessons, and everybody is kind of frenetic and talking about shredding. And then she comes to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he's just like, "Hey, the guitar, it's an instrument for your soul." And she's like, "Ooh, he's calming and he's sexy. I'll take lessons from him." Mm-hmm. And then she starts taking lessons from him, and then her kid gets into some more trouble, but it turns out that he kind of likes the songs she writes, and she likes the songs that he's writing, and they start working together, and she's going to go bone Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but then the kid steals a keyboard, and then they have to go to court, and then he goes to a Borstal, and then he gets to take his keyboard to the Borstal, and he makes some music, and then they win a contest at the end to be musicians at this bar.
We don't know if they won. They just
definitely
performed.
won. I mean, I think they were better than Hart. I don't know.
Yeah,
it seemed like not Anne and Nancy Wilson, but the Irish version with the
buskers.
Yeah, the buskers who came in off the street and were like, you put 50p in me hot. So I don't know. I mean, that's basically, I just described the whole, that's exactly what happens. Everything.
It's a Shaggy Dog kind of story. It's a slice of life, family drama. So for me, I don't like musicals at all.
Oh, I hate musicals. Hate them. Hate.
There are exceptions.
Yeah.
But very
it's
few.
Rare, but yeah.
Very few. Singing in the Rain is actually good.
Yes.
I like White Christmas.
No.
Except
Holiday
when they lament menstrual shows. That's always weird.
Well, dude, I mean, do you remember Holiday Inn when they actually do the minstrel show? And then they talk about how they should do more?
Funny, the heartbreak of that is, I think Holiday Inn's actually better than White Christmas.
It's a better movie. Yeah,
but
for
it's
sure.
got that minstrel show.
Oh, my God.
The Lincoln Day number. I'm like, oh, no.
When I had never seen Holiday Inn, and my uncle's like, you like Holiday Inn. So
and you probably were. You're probably like, this movie rules.
Yeah.
It's a long way before they get to that. Yep.
It's like 10 years ago. I'm like, yeah, I'm an adult. I can watch Bing Crosby croon. I like Bing Crosby as a singer. I always have. Yep. I like Christmas music. Irving Berlin, no problem. I put the movie on. I'm watching it, and exactly like you said, I'm like, this is a fucking good movie. I like this movie. Oh my God, what the fuck?
And it goes on. It's a full
so
number.
Long.
Yeah.
Oh.
So obviously the sweet spot for like the John Carney movies is that, as somebody said, is that he makes musicals for people who don't like musicals, because more often than not the music is diegetic and it makes sense, and the way he
and they don't break into song. It's like they're performing. They're musicians.
Correct.
And artists.
So he's behind Once, which was, at least for my generation, the soundtrack for every grueling breakup you ever went through. And I went through at least 2 during that time and sobbed my eyes out to both the film and the soundtrack. And I'm a big lover of Once. I haven't watched it in a lot of years, so maybe I would go back and wouldn't like it, but it really. And then he followed it up. He made some movies in between there, but his next kind of big movie that would be in this family would be Sing Street, which is a very, very charming film and has a fantastic killer soundtrack. And there's this one.
Did you see Begin Again, which is also in this vein?
I know of it. I don't remember it. If I did, I don't think so. Therefore, I don't think I've seen it.
I barely remember once. I think when you said I must be the generation right before you because it was not the. I know you can tell by all the gray on the beard.
Yeah.
It was not the breakup. The breakup stuff for me, I think, was crying.
Reality Bites.
Yeah, probably crying
before sunrise.
Yeah, threesome even. Crying to I don't know, a bad YouTube cover of Dancing Barefoot.
What's the Nick Cassavetes movie where Jenna Rollins is a drunk with Peter Falk?
Woman Under the Influence.
Woman Under the Influence. That's what I imagine your childhood teen breakup movie was.
How old do you think I am? Jesus.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Oh, okay. Wow. Definitely time to buy a Corvette. Okay,
the shop around the corner.
Man, you're really.
Am I still too early?
Nanook of the North? I don't know. I mean, how far back are we gonna go?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was gonna say I don't really remember once that well. I remember thinking like, yeah, this is okay. I don't think it was like the gangbusters thing everybody said it was, but I did like Begin Again a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't remember whether I saw Sing Street. Is that?
Sing Street's great, man. It's about a boy. Is it
the 80s Irish kid?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They end up on a boat at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like the thing that he's able to do so well in these films is walk this line where he's showing, because it's not a musical. I mean, they are musicals, but because it's not in that weird, uncanny reality of musicals. Things kind of go the way they would in real life.
Yeah.
Even though at times there are these sweeping emotional songs or very upbeat songs, but the songs don't change the reality around them. And so when you see a character that has rough edges, they just have rough edges. If a romance is doomed from the beginning, they're probably not going to get together at the end of his movies.
Yeah.
But it's about sort of like what people can find in each other and what they find in music. And that's what all of them sort of are. And they all have, in my experience, I don't know about Begin Again, but these amazing songs and amazing soundtracks that you could just sort of listen to independently. They work just as music.
Yeah.
They don't feel like musical soundtracks. This one I would say is probably the weakest in terms of its soundtrack, and these songs are not memorable to me or all that great.
Right.
But what really keeps this movie moving and what is really effective with the movie is Eve Hewson as Flora.
Yeah.
Who, this is another sort of trope, like both of kind of like, the cinema from this part of the world, but also his movies in particular. He has no problem making his characters despicable.
Yes.
And
Flora's got some problems.
And she's a despicable fuck up of a mom.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get an audience to care about a despicable woman. And on top of that, a despicable mom. Because ultimately, if you're kind of a despicable mom, you're fucking up an innocent person's life.
Yeah.
And so like sort of intuitively, you just sort of go, what the fuck? Like you're not going to be on board with that person. However, well, this movie does this great thing where it's like the movie never really wants you to feel sympathy for her. Mm-hmm. She's a selfish person mostly all the way through. And like the great conversation she has with one of her friends when she's just going on is like, I think this is such a very sort of now mentality, but she's like, I just feel like, I need to like step outside the box and live for myself for a while. Which is hilarious if you watch the movie, because as her friend points out, all you've ever done is live for yourself.
Yeah.
She never gave up her life to live for her son.
Right.
She had a kid. She remained a drug addict the entire duration of his youth by her own admission and pregnancy. She got pregnant super young. She decided to keep him, but then didn't really want him and didn't really raise him. He's kind of raised himself, which is why he has the problems that he does. And even genuine attempts that he makes to connect with her, which are very believable to me because he's a kind of angsty teenager. She doesn't even register them. She's like, okay, well, I'll be back in an hour and a half. And she just leaves. It's just like, oh, he wanted you to listen to the music of the phone. That was his way of reaching out to you. Like, so you're watching all of that at the same time, at least in my experience of watching the movie. I ended up loving this character, this person.
Yeah.
Because of the charisma of the actress and so much of the weight of this film is on her shoulders because the son's out of the picture for chunks of the movie. He comes in and out. The estranged husband comes in and out. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is most of the time on a laptop screen.
Yeah.
So
they do this thing where they transplant him to her location because they have such a deep connection, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But when she finally decides to stop being, a selfish bastard is when he gets in real trouble and she stands up for him in court and says, I'll pay the shop owner. I'll do this. I'll do that. He's the only thing I have. And I was like, I'm not really sure if I buy this, but she's great. Eve Hewson, I mean. So I went along with it. And then in the following scene, or maybe two scenes later, she's been planning to go to Los Angeles to bone Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he's all about it. And she just tells him, I can't come out there to bone you. And if I do, I got to bring my son with me. So, and he's like, and he's really annoying. And you're just like, okay, she's still kind of a dickhead, but
yes,
she's finally maybe turned that corner into, borderline responsible. I mean, I don't even know. She started to make the right decisions, or appropriate decisions.
That's what I think Carney is so good at, though, is like there's no magical ending to any of his movies that I've seen. It isn't just like, well, it all like in once. It's like they make this beautiful music together, and they're both in this place, and there is the sense that these two characters are falling in love with each other, but it's entirely wrong, and so they do not end up with each other. They go their own way, and it's like, God damn, it's, and so you have some of the accoutrement of a musical, but you don't have and all of reality shifts around, and you have that triumphant moment, and it's like the triumphs in his movies are always these little things. It's the older brother who's like, get in the boat and go do your crazy thing, even though you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
It's not him actually going off with this girl in Sing Street and going off into make a life for himself. It's the brother putting him in the boat. In this, it's not her going to LA and getting her music played with some record executives or whatever. It's showing up minimally as a mother in court for her son and then supporting him and playing music with him on a stage. It's not reconciling the family. It's like the closest reconciliation you're going to get is them guilting the dad to play bass.
Yeah.
And it feels like more real in that way, and it's like kind of more acceptable. And one of the ways that they do this throughout the movie is like both Flora and Max, the mother and son, have shit taste in music. Shit taste.
Yes.
And so when they write their lyrics are shit most of the time. And you're like, oh yeah, that's good. We're never like laughing at them, but it's humorous.
We're laughing near them.
Yeah. We're laughing near them, yes. And I think that's so great though, right? Because it's like, the song's catchy. Some of them are kind of catchy, but the music is still basically shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not really about that. And they have shit taste. So, because in a typical American movie that try to do this, like they'd be these shit characters, and then they go write lyrics, and then they'd be these beautiful, perfect lyrics in a beautiful, perfect song.
Oh my God, there must be like a soul underneath that fucking hard shell.
And they just totally jettison that, and they're like, no, these are people who've been listening to like club trance music, Euro trance music their entire lives. She's not much older than he is. She's like a decade older than him, basically, almost. And she's still mentally a child. And so they're going to write dog shit lyrics because he's a kid.
Yeah.
And they're going to write, but it's not about the dog shit lyrics. It's about them finding each other, Yeah. And so I like that about the movie. I don't think like of the trifecta of the one Sing Street, this is probably the least this is probably the least of those, but at the same time, it's still, I find a very pleasant movie. I did find a lot of humor in it. I like these characters. They got me on board. Eve Houston was, I think, fantastic in this
Absolutely
film.
great. Yeah.
So that's my take. What'd you think, Dave?
I think that this was, I mean, I agree with virtually everything you said. I mean, the thing about John Carney and Begin Again is like this too. It's like, this movie is like, if this movie just went 1 or 2% further, it would go from being kind of sugary and nice to fucking saccharine and gross.
Yep.
And he does toe that line every time it starts to get treacly. Something puts it back on track. It's like, oh, they're starting to like write songs together. Oh, he gets arrested for stealing, a synthesizer. And oh, she's going to go have this romance with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and get her tape listened to. It's like, oh, nope, she's got to stay because her kid's going to a fucking borstal or whatever they call them in Ireland. And I think that that's just a really, I don't know how smart it is, but it's a good intuitive way to keep things on track from getting either too grim, like it's a fucking Ken Loach movie, or, too syrupy sweet, like it's, the American remake of this movie.
It walks that line of where it never goes full sweetie musical, and it never goes real dire Irish, just
for sure.
And
I think that's really emblematic also in her friend, who's, I can't remember who she's, when Eve Houston, Flora says, I'm going to go live for myself for a while. And her friend's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like you said, she's like, you've always lived with yourself. You're a dickhead.
Yeah.
It's like, I love you.
She's like, I love you, but you've been a shit mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate the fact that Flora is just kind of like, yeah, you're right. She's not like, fuck you. She's like, oh, come on. I went out to the bars and I did some stuff, but yeah, okay, you're right. I didn't really want him around. You're right.
Well, like she gives her perspective, which is, and like she has kind of a point, right? When she like gives into it, she's like, yeah, I had a baby way too early. And I, probably shouldn't have. But also, everybody said they cared. And all of our friends have said, oh, we care and we love Max and we'll do anything for you guys. But did you ever do anything? Did you ever offer anything practical to me when I was a kid and I had this baby strapped to me and you guys were still going to Spain every summer?
Yeah.
Right? And to childless resorts where you knew I couldn't go.
That was actually the thing that stuck in my gut. I'm like, oh my God.
That's real though.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
That is real.
Absolutely.
Or it's like, oh, we love you. Yeah, we love you. We love your kids. And it doesn't even have to be kids. It's just like, when you're going through something, be it a divorce or a loss in your life, you have those people, and you may have been friends with them for 20 years, and like they're kind of there at the beginning for you. Mm-hmm. But as somebody who I guess at your age has gone through some kind of difficulty.
What? How old do you think I am?
I'm just saying that you're of an age where you've gone through some kind of difficulty, some sort of loss.
Yes,
right?
I will take up that mantle.
Yeah, because that's true of every human being beyond the age of birth, but especially at our age, right?
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, like, people will genuinely be there for you and bring a casserole and do a meal train or do whatever for like the first week, and then they drop off, and then your real close people are the people who are in it for the long haul that you end up when you get to the other side of that dark night being even closer with. They hang on for probably about 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But their life doesn't stop. And they're going to continue living their life. And your grief, your loss, your divorce, the death, the dysfunction, the child with a drug addiction, whatever it is that you're facing, your own addictions, you continue living with it. And then they retreat and go back to life. And there's a bitterness that can seep into you. There's a resentment, which is like, you said you were going to be here, and like, yeah, you brought me a casserole, but this continued for me. This wasn't a moment. This wasn't a sad day or sad few weeks. This was a life-altering, traumatizing thing. And that's how she kind of interprets having this child. And like, this was a life-altering, traumatizing thing, to the point that sometimes I wish she would be kidnapped or just disappear, and and not be hurt, but not be in my life. And y'all just continue living your life, and left me behind. And their perspective is like, yeah, but you could have. Which, what a great metaphor! It's not a euphemism, but it should be, which is taking the boat to London. It's a great. I think that's what we should say instead of abortion. Like, are you pro-choice? I'm not pro-choice. I'm pro taking the boat to London, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if women need to take the boat to London, they should be free to decide if they feel like get on that boat.
Yeah.
I like that was just a great, like, we should, I want to embrace that into my rhetoric. But, and she didn't, she was a dickhead, and she didn't do that out of defiance, not because she wanted this child, and then when she had him, so again, all that feels very real, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I mean, I appreciate the, your insight into, you find out who your friends are, when you've got the big life tragedy or whatever, and who sticks around and who doesn't, but their lives do go on. And
even the people who genuinely love you, their lives go on.
Of course.
Not that they shouldn't.
Jobs and spouses
and their own stresses,
and children, maybe, and, all kinds of shit.
They got their own drama, their own pain, their own whatever. But it doesn't stop you from feeling like y'all moved on and I'm still here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, real talk on Spoilerpiece Theater. What are you doing to me? Jesus. This is supposed to be the show where I just crap on everything, and here you are making me be all like emotional about like Irish people. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. To bring it all around to this movie, that is why, of the movies of his that I have seen, that's why they resonate with me, is because you're still going to get that upbeat, catchy pop song.
Yeah.
But he's just going to very kind of, subtly communicate things about real life. It's such an odd little niche he's made for himself, right? Of being, and
he's really good at it.
He's really good at it. Yes.
Yeah.
Is this his best outing?
One doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this his best outing? Probably not.
No.
Is it a very strong outing? I think so. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I think this is, if you've liked his previous films, you're definitely going to like this. It's a little. I mean, the drama doesn't feel as dramatic as some of the.
It's a little breezier.
It's breezier than Once, for example.
And it's not as heavy on the music either. It's not as many musical interludes.
Right. And I wish I remembered Begin Again better. I do remember that the ending of Begin Again doesn't go in kind of a happy way. It doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. I think this is definitely worth seeing for the peeps, and especially if you're like me and you don't like musicals, and if you're like you and you don't like musicals.
Yep.
So, just real quick before we sign off, what are some other musicals that you don't hate? Could be one that's you've only seen on stage or a film, or because the reason I ask is I love seeing Les Mis on stage. Watching that movie, any movie version of it, but especially the musical, the recent one, it's so awful. It's so awful.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Ironically, a recent movie that I didn't really care for the movie, but it has a musical element on the back end of it, and I thought it was the best part of the movie. It's Theater Camp.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, that fucking movie.
I didn't like that movie at all.
Neither did I.
But I did like the musical aspect of it. I was like, I kind of wish this was the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's a shimmy in your shoulders when you're greeting the shareholders. Hey, shareholders, hey. And so that's like, okay, all right. That's my vibe. The rest of that movie didn't work to me, in my opinion. But and I have no idea. This is so bonkers because this is the most musical thing of all musicals of the 21st century.
Oh, boy.
I cried genuine tears seeing a production, the Broadway production, touring of Wicked.
No kidding.
Defying Gravity.
Wow.
I cried. And I was like, that is like Hamilton for even whiter people, you know? it's even whiter, older millennials, you know?
Wow. Now, I hate, and I'm one of the few people, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody else say this. I hate The Wizard of Oz. I fucking hate it. I hate it.
I don't hate it, but it doesn't do anything for me.
And, it just makes me furious. And so I kind of, when Wicked was a thing, when it was first a thing, and people were like, oh, you got to see Wicked. I'm like, I fucking do not have to see Wicked. Like, no. And then I was in Buffalo once, and they had a touring production there, and they called it The Wicked. Not on the marquee. That's just what people called it.
Yeah.
Buffalo. So, I don't know. The Buffalo connection has nothing to do with anything. But
Did you end up seeing it?
No, fuck no.
I think people probably recommended it to you because it's taking the piss out of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, is it?
That's what Wicked. Yeah, the whole thing about Wicked is it's from obviously the Wicked Witch from her perspective, and it's like the whole narrative of the Wizard of Oz is like propaganda. Mm-hmm. It's political propaganda.
They really fell on my fucking head and my sister's face
for Oz.
Yeah,
and I'm not actually this evil person. I just look different, and because they're prejudiced that they've casted me as this evil person. Oh. And so she kind of assumes this role. Yeah, I don't want to spoil Wicked for you, but it's the villain of the piece is Glenda the Good Witch. She's the villain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, she sucked. So yeah, she could.
So
be.
That's probably when you were like, I don't like The Wizard of Oz. Then people were like, well, then you really would like Wicked.
Oh,
and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I think that they were trying to communicate to you that if you don't like The Wizard of Oz, this is a takedown of The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't like theater camp either, but I will say there is one thing that made me laugh, and that is the fact that Molly Gordon's character's name is Rebecca Diane. I just thought that was really funny.
That made you laugh?
Yeah. Because it's just a theatery thing. It is so theatery.
The only parts that made me laugh were the songs. Women cannot read.
Them. Oh, I do remember that.
Women cannot read in America.
Yeah.
And she's like, the little girl starts to be able to read. Because it's like the thing that they nailed about the musicals is why they suck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I hate about musicals is that theater kid energy.
Yes.
And they're like,
I refer to it as theater elbows.
Yes. And that whole vibe. And then the songs are so stupid, and they're so. To me, theater camp was a poor man's Waiting for Guffman. Mm-hmm. It was just like, what if we made Waiting for Guffman, improv'd it, but we weren't funny? That was theater camp. It was like, I know what you're trying to do, and what you're trying to do is hilarious, right? Like, I got it. I was like, if you could be witty and bright and funny, this would be really funny. But you're not, so this is okay. I didn't hate it, but I was just sort of like, this is fine. The kids, they got real theater kids to do it. So like some of that stuff was cute, but then when they got into the songs, I was like, now you're nailing what sucks about musical theater.
Yeah, absolutely. At
least for some of us. I guess that would be another one. What did I just compare? Oh yeah, it's not technically a musical, but Waiting for Guffman those songs are hilarious, man.
Man, I haven't seen Waiting for Guffman in 25 years, so I'll have to take your word for it.
Stool Boom.
I'm just not a Christopher Guest person generally.
Really?
Yeah. I like the dog movie, whatever that's called, Best in Show.
Yeah.
And I watched This Is Spinal Tap recently, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but that movie's so subtle, it almost doesn't come off like a comedy sometimes.
That was the whole thing. A lot of people didn't know it was. They thought that was a real band. Yeah.
It's just like
especially in that era, because that era was so comical, but not really. It was all straight faced.
Yeah, but I mean, you watch it now and you think about movies that are let's just say mockumentaries, and it's like it's in a different league.
Yes.
It's a really well done. It's really well done. I think.
Well, boy, we're way off subject here, but most mockumentaries break which is what theater camp did. Mm-hmm. It starts off as a mockumentary, and then they just forget the convention. They forget that's the conceit.
Yeah,
and it just starts operating as the camera angles and stuff. Everything just starts operating as a movie.
Right.
And then it ends as a mockumentary, and it's like, well, but it wasn't a mockumentary in the middle.
Yeah.
and it's also like the officification of it all, where it's like now if it's a mockumentary, everybody's got to do the look to camera, and it's like that's not how documentaries work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not good documentaries anyway.
Yeah, not good ones. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, you're right. We have gotten a far cry away
Far
from
afield.
far afield. Excuse me, from Flora and Son, which it sounds like we'd both recommend. So great.
I heartily recommend it. I don't know
Yeah.
when or how you're ever going to be able to see it because I don't know how movies work anymore. But
Right. Well, this is an Apple TV Plus movie that I think is getting a limited theatrical release, but will eventually be on Apple TV. So,
well, here's my question on that: did they pick this up out of like TIFF or out of Sundance? Because I saw the trailer for this like 6 months ago, and it was not Apple. It was a different trailer, and I was like, "Oh, great, another movie from this guy. I'm going to check it out." And then it did the spring, summer-ish, and then most recently TIFF circuit, and then all of a sudden now it's like, well, it's an Apple exclusive. But or was Apple involved from the beginning because it's got GarageBand product placement?
boy, you got me. I should really know the answer to that, but I don't. What I can say is that, well, it's an Apple original film, so I don't know if that means that they paid for it or what. I do know about the festival circuit thing, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
So who knows? It ended up in their wheelhouse, so in their shed, in their I was going to say basement.
Very few people are ever going to be able to watch this.
Right.
Which now I'm recommending to your audience a movie that they're not going to be able to watch.
That's okay. I do that all the time. I mean, how many people are actually going to go to Prime or Paramount Plus, which is where you can see it if you have a subscription, to see our Patreon film, Wolf, and we spent 35 minutes talking about that.
I mean, if they're a listener to Binge Movies, quite a few of them will go watch it.
Well, yes. The crossover, I think, the crossover listeners, you'll see us, if you paid for the stats from Paramount Plus that week, you'd see Wolf skyrocket.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, okay. So returning back to Earth, two recommendations for Flora and Son, two big nays for Dark Asset. Unless you really are so curious to see a movie so bad.
No. I have a swap it out.
Okay.
Swap it out for there's a filmmaker that not very many people are turned on to. One of the all-time worst filmmakers ever.
Oh,
ever.
I know who you're. Yeah.
It's not Neil Breen.
Who it should be.
No, this guy gives Neil Breen a run for his money.
Oh, wow.
Neil Breen's played out. Neil Breen's 10 years ago at this point.
Fair.
Giovanni Molina.
Okay.
He has a 50-minute motion picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably his 10th. It's his 30th on his IMDb, but some of them are only like 5 minutes long. Most of his work was on Amazon Prime, but a lot of it repurposed footage from Terminator 2. So I think they eventually took it off there.
Oh, my God. Did you see my eyes?
Yeah. And I say repurpose, I mean, it was just chunks of Terminator 2.
Like the Turkish Star Wars thing?
Yeah. Yes. Giovanni Molina, a Florida man in his own right, probably a conspiracy theorist, but he made a movie called Bigfoot Becoming the Beast. No, Bigfoot the Beast Within. What? It's called Bigfoot the Beast Within. I mean, and here's the thing, that is the most sensical of all of his films titles. Because he has one that's called like Earth the Virus or something like that. There's one that is Demonia Panorama or something. And there's another one that is that I covered in the shows, Domination of the Becoming.
You're right. What does that mean?
Right. So when you say Bigfoot, the Beast Within, that makes sense compared to his other ones, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil anything about it, but all I will say is, if you've ever wanted to watch a movie where they filmed on location outside somewhere in Florida, and you have two characters, right? You got me and you, Dave, and we shoot Dave and Dave is in the real physical place. Then when we do the reverse shot of me talking to Dave, I am on a green screen with the footage of the physical place that we were just both in the wide shot. Then they flip back to Dave. Dave is in the real shot. Then they flip back to me. Now I'm in the real shot. Then they flip back to Dave. Now Dave is on green screen. Now they flip back to me. Now I'm on green screen. Then they go wide. We're both there. And then we just leave the scene. And then we go to another scene in another physical location, and it does the exact same thing. We have the same conversation, but we're saying the opposite thing that we just said. If that's your kind of jam, if you ever just want to watch the art of filmmaking be abused, it's a movie where the characters, the main character, who is played by Giovanni Molina, who is the writer, producer, cinematographer, so forth and so on.
Vanity Project?
Oh, yes. His character's first name is Darfur.
What? Are you serious?
Darfur.
I don't even know what to say. I mean,
at some point, his real life son, who is in the movie, his name is Lewis, the entire movie. There's one moment and one scene where they call him Steven.
Which is his real name?
No.
No?
No. And then in the credits, he's credited as Steven, and he's credited as Steven in IMDb, but he's Lewis the entirety of the film.
What the fuck?
That's the bad movie that you should be watching.
Okay.
Not Dark Asset.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because Dark Asset's not so bad it's funny, or so bad it's good. It is just...
It's just bad.
Just bad.
Yeah.
Inert.
And as Huey Lewis said, sometimes bad is bad. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that does it for this episode of Spoilerpiece Theater. We've told you where you can see these movies. I want to thank our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for doing all the heavy lifting each week for us and making us sound great. You can find Spoilerpiece Theater anywhere you can get podcasts. If you want to go to our website, we're at spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media. We're Spoilerpiece Theater on Facebook. Everywhere else, we're at Spoilerpiece. If you want to drop us a line, email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com. You can give us a call at 862-21-PEACE and leave us a voicemail and tell us why Dark Asset is actually the best action, low-budget action movie thus far of 2023. I mean, if you're going to do that, maybe don't leave your name because we will make fun of you and troll you. But otherwise, go ahead and leave a voicemail. If you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. You can rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out. If you really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. As I said at the beginning and one time in the middle, Jason and I talked about Wolf, the 1994 Mike Nichols movie starring Nicholson and Pfeiffer, and it's weird, and I love it, and Jason kind of likes it.
Yeah.
we appreciate it. And Jason, where can everybody, again, tell everybody where they can find you, et cetera, et cetera?
Twitter is dying a slow death, but if it's still there, you're not paying for it. That's free at Binge Movies. Instagram at Binge Movies Lives. Letterboxd at Binge Movies. You can find the main show that I do is Binge Movies. It's me and another film critic, filmmaker, film fanatic, going toe-to-toe with me, just a regular old film weirdo, film obsessive guy, going through every aisle of the local video store.
The last video store in the universe, right?
Yeah, the last video store in the universe, such as it is in 2023. Going through every aisle and putting together usually about minimum of 5 films, discussing them, comparing them. They're all picked based on a theme. Then we do a ranking. We have seasons. At the end of the season, we have 2 film critics duel it out to make arguments for what they believe is the one movie most worthy of preservation for all time, even beyond the end times. It's a fun thing. It's weird. It's analytical. It's overly long, overly thought out. I can vouch for
all these things. It's a blast.
Yeah,
I really love your show.
But people, I always say this, the people who it's for, it's really for. And the people who it's not for, it's really not for. So, but I have the honor and privilege of being a co-collaborator with one of Dave's co-collaborators on a brand new limited series where 3 podcasters of various degrees of success, me being the least of all 3 successful, have teamed up to do a limited series throughout this spooky season. We are the Slashers. The show is called The Slashers. We're going through the golden age of Hollywood, or the golden age of slashers, rather, in Hollywood, which is 1980 to 1984. and we're going through a wide spectrum, everything from drive-in massacre movies to straight-to-video French slashers to Austrian psychological slashers to driller killers to horror comedies to the AAA titles to the deep cuts. We've got it all. If you ever wanted the little kid from Ozzie and Harriet to direct a slasher movie, well, he did, and we watched it. We talk about it. So, and it's going to be about 7 or 8 episodes of that. By the time this comes out, there should be 2 or 3 already up. Just find the Slashers podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. And my co-collaborator is the great, legendary Megan Kearns, who brings legitimacy and class and a little bit of that Spoilerpiece energy to what otherwise would just be a filthy, perverted show full of nothing but blood and guts and deranged people. One guy who loves horror movies and one guy who says he loves horror movies but hasn't liked a single movie I've ever recommended to him. I'll let you decide who's who. I think I just gave it away. I would also say if Spoilerpiece, if you are a patron of Spoilerpiece, that's like being a patron to the arts. That's like being a patron to your local opera, your local symphony orchestra. If you become a patron of Binge Movies, that's like being a patron of that weird, dirty bookstore around the corner from the Palace Theater. So,
okay. Well, that is a scintillating description of your show and your new show and your Patreon. So,
yeah, we're sort of the grimy underbelly of cinephalia, and then there's Spoilerpiece. That's where it's in the light. It's clean. It's where the good people are. Okay. I'm for the weirdos. I'm for the underground.
I am for both. So I like I said, love listening to Binge Movies. I'm not sure why you decided to watch all 7 Police Academy movies, but it was a good episode. So
we did, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing that yearly.
Like movies that are kind of like series that are forgotten?
No.
Kind of?
Police Academy every year.
Oh, I thought you meant the idea.
No. I'm thinking about watching Police Academy, all 7 films every year with the same guests every time.
Oh my God. I would listen to that every year, that new episode.
I know. I'm working on it. He really doesn't want to do it, but I'm working on it.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again, Jason, for joining us. And my name is Dave Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm Dave Sees Movies on all of the platforms. And so that is the show. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Bye.